What's up, everybody? This is part 2 of our kratom and trauma series. And we left off in our last video where we were discussing just a general overview of everything, and we started to talk about hitting a point in our kratom addiction and having our trauma come back up to the surface. And that's what this video is going to be about. It's often referred to as a healing crisis when the things that we've been through throughout our lives, there hits a point where it starts to come back up to the surface again. And I've read a little bit about this, and it said that it often happens during our mid to late 30s, sometimes into our 40s even. And what it can be looked at as is that we hit a point in our maturity where we're able to see that the things that have happened to us when we were younger are not okay. And the older that we get and the more mature that our brains come and the more that we learn and understand things, the more that these things don't make sense anymore. And when we're younger, when we're children, it's a coping mechanism that happens where we normalize the things that we've been through. And so this is a lot of what happens. And as well, when we're young, we don't really understand any different a lot of times. So for me, what happened was that I was in my second year of kratom addiction, and I went through a move where I moved houses, and that was the biggest trigger that could have happened to me because I had to move around a lot when I was younger. There was something about being in this state of mind of where I was at in my addiction at the time, and the upheaval of my physical environment and having to go through the actual move that brought me to a place in my trauma that I hadn't ever experienced before. And it was really rough. Oh, where are you, Peanut? There you are. She wants to probably keep walking, so we can keep walking, Peanut. Come on, let's keep walking this way. I know. Oh, you're so excited. Show them how you run. Show them how you run. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, you're trying to play. Good girl. Good girl. Come on, let's go. Come on. Come on, let's go. She gets like... Come on, Peanut. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. She gets she starts to kind of demand attention whenever I start making videos. So I guess it's nice to lighten the mood a little bit when we're talking about this. But so I went through this move when I was in the worst of my addiction, and you guys, it just so brutal. It brought everything up to the surface, and I was having literal flashbacks of come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. Of stuff from my childhood, of moving around and the abuse and the different things that I had been through, because I shared with you guys, sorry, my hair's blowing in my mouth and my face. I shared with you guys, and if you don't see, it's raining right now. That's why I'm gonna look kind of greasy looking, almost like my hair is gonna look not so great because it's raining. But I was literally having these mental flashbacks because I shared with you guys that when I left my mom's house when I was 11, and it was this very crisis, survival moment of my life because the abuse was so bad. My mom was just not in a good way, and her addictions and her eating disorders, which I didn't mention in the last video, that was part of what was going on with her, is that she's had lifelong eating disorders. Come on, Peanut. And so she just was really super unhealthy, and she was really violent. And leading up to when I moved into my dad's house, it was just so many beatings and so many, I'm gonna walk this way because the rain's blowing in my face. and like just like the most horrible, violent like outbursts. And so it was just this like survival thing where she would always threaten me to send me to live with my dad. And finally, after one of these crazy violent outbursts, I said, like, I want to go live with my dad. And I think that she was kind of using it as like a way to like scare me. And she called him and said, you know, she wants to come and live with you. And I ended up following through. But it was this feeling of like, you know, I have to get out of here because I literally cannot survive this. And so there was something about this move in this second year of my kratom addiction when it was really bad, where like it triggered this. And it was so rough because like I was having full blown like flashbacks and like all these repressed emotions and repressed things of this physical abuse and violence, and you know, having to leave and having to uproot and having to leave my sisters, which was a big thing for me. I never wanted to leave my sisters. And so it was like this move brought something out, and I was brought to this place where I was like, it was almost like I was this like beaten child again. And so that's when I knew like that there was definitely an issue that couldn't be buried any longer. And although I was really deep into my kratom addiction at that point, I knew that like there needed to be a change and there needed to be healing. And I didn't know how I was going to do it at that point, but I knew that that situation and how real the flashbacks were that I experienced, like I knew that it wasn't going to be possible to put this off anymore. And so it kind of became intertwined with like my quitting and my recovery process, because I knew that if I was having like this level of flashbacks and this level of like, you know, where I wasn't, you know, I wasn't able to function because of my kratom addiction any longer, but I also like wasn't able to function in my life because of this PTSD basically was what was going on, stuff that was coming to the surface. So my healing crisis though, it wasn't just that one instance, it was definitely this expanse of time that lasted probably maybe 3 years or so, because this was when it started to really get bad, and I was at my second year of my kratom addiction, and then it went on throughout, like it took me like a year to basically quit after that. And then I had a pretty rough recovery, which I've gotten into, where it was like a good solid couple years of like pause and rebuilding my life. And it was really intertwined with this whole like trauma work that was going on. Come here, Peanut, let's go. Peanut. She was on her own mission. So, and that was like something valuable that I wanted to bring up too, is that like, you know, I interwove it with my recovery process because it was basically crucial to address this stuff, because I wasn't going to be able to be sober without like really working on this. And so we're going to get into in the other videos to come like what it looks like to actually like finally look at this trauma and finally work on it. Come over here, let's go. Come on, Peanut. Come on, let's go. So, but this video is about just like the healing crisis part of it. And you guys may be experiencing something like this yourself, where you are in your kratom addiction, or, you know, I think any addiction really brings a lot of this stuff to the surface. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know what it is about like the, let me wipe this off. about like, I don't know, maybe it's that like when we are self-medicating with whatever addiction that we're in, it like dampens down, the different aspects of our trauma and our response to it, which is the triggers and the symptoms. And then when we, are in these addictions and like our tolerance is raised, and then there are these like cycles of like using, and then like, like going into the withdrawals. I don't know what it is that like makes, excuse me, dealing with trauma so much worse. But I know that there's something that's going on. And I haven't researched it a ton and seen like, any sort of solid, like evidence or other research that different like professionals have done about this. But I know that there's some sort of connection, because the amount of people that I've talked to personally about their issues with trauma and being in addiction and being in recovery, that there is definitely something that's going on. So yeah, this is something that you may be going through. Your healing crisis may have just begun, or you may be in it and you're like, what is going on in my life? Like, things are completely unraveling. Like, I'm not able to like basically deal with this stuff anymore. And I think the things like what I was going through, like, having these hardcore triggers and being, come here, Peanut, come here. And like going through these things, sorry, I'm like leaning down, getting in the camera as I'm putting on her leash. Come on, let's go. That I've explained about, like, and this was just one instance, like this whole move, and then, like everything that was happening with that was just like one instance. It became like a daily thing where like I would just like literally like anything would like trigger me. And, it was something that like, it was very painful, and it lasted a while. Like I said, like this went on like throughout my recovery. And so it's definitely something that I think that a lot of us experience, and it may take on different shapes and forms for all of us. But I hope by talking about this that we're able to shine some light into it. And we're also able to like normalize what it is to be a person who's experienced trauma and PTSD and that kind of thing. Because you know what? Like, being human, come on, let's go. Being human, like, things are gonna happen to us. And, we're all human. We have all gone through things in our lives where like, it's not, completely perfect. Like, and even people who have the easiest lives, like, their trauma takes on different levels and different experiences with all of us. And like the trauma that I went through and, how that affected me, somebody else may have a whole different experience with it. So like all of us perceive it differently. But I think that it's really important to like shine light on this and to normalize that, like, we're human. It's okay that we've gone through things that hurt and that don't make sense. And what's not okay though is acting like these things didn't happen and trying to move on with our lives in a way that's like not either addressing them or grieving them or doing what needs to be done. Maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you're totally cool just being like, whatever happened, it's not a big deal. And if that's the way that you are, that's awesome. But for a lot of us, there definitely needs to be a chance to like address these things and to look at them and process them and integrate them into our lives to become better, wiser, stronger people because of it. So that's what we're going to be getting into in this series. And the healing crisis may be something that you're experiencing, and I hope that if you find this, you're able to find a safe place to kind of start to look at things and unpack things. Maybe we could even do it together. So I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.